Hello, my Italian food fanatics. Today, we're going to make a special salmon puttanesca. We're going to make it sous vide, believe it or not. I don't know if you know what sous vide is, but by the time we're done, you are going to know what sous vide is. Anyway, let's not waste any more time. If you don't know what puttanesca is in the style of the prostitute. This was a dish invented in Naples for the fallen women to have in between work, let's put it that way. The way that it was originally created in Naples was a very, very fast way to make a meal to tide you over if you were hungry in between, again, contracts or work, as a prostitute would have. It has become ubiquitous. It's made all over the world, and this is an American-Italian version. And I hope you like it. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up, click subscribe and like, and hit the bell, and leave a comment down below. If you want to start a dialogue with me, I'm happy to do that. Let me know what you think. By the way, here it is, and you're going to see me plate it up in just a second. So without any further ado, let's go and make this thing. All right, my Italian food fanatics. Today we're going to make salmon puttanesca. It's an American-Italian version of puttanesca. Of course, because I'm in California, we're going to be using 100% California extra virgin olive oil. We'll use some anchovies. We'll also use some parsley and some basil. Use some garlic, some olives, both green and Kalamata, as well as some capers, rinsed, by the way, because of the salt content. We'll use some hot pepper. We'll use some chopped tomatoes, 128-ounce can, just the solids chopped, some clam juice, and some white wine. But before we do anything with these ingredients and make our sauce, we must turn our attention to the salmon, and we'll do that right now. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we're back with our salmon. Now, as you can see, this salmon is not even. So essentially, this is a lot thinner here on the belly part, and then up towards the back is a little bit, is a lot thicker. So what we're going to do is going to trim this part of the salmon away. You can use that for whatever you want. And I'm going to actually leave this whole like this. In fact, I'm going to trim right here a little bit, and then right across the top just a tiny little bit, just like that, to basically even out the fillet. All right, and it still has the skin on it, but it has been deboned, and it's also been descaled. All right, so we just make the fillet look nice this way. All right, and as you can tell, I don't know if you can tell, but this is wild salmon. It's sockeye salmon that's wild from Alaska, and I'm a proponent of only eating wild salmon, no farmed fishes at all, under no circumstances. If even a fish is not available and the only way that you can buy it is farmed, I stay away from it. And there are reasons for that, and I will articulate those reasons sometime in this video. You will see. I may do it right now. But we're going to clean up this fillet as we did. And what we'll do prior to doing anything, prior to any of our prep work, is to salt this very, very lightly. Because later on when we cook it, we're going to have to dry it off. But in the meantime, with a very, very small amount of salt, what we're going to do is help keep this piece of fish nice and juicy. The salt will essentially draw the moisture out of the fish, and then the fish will again draw the moisture back in to create a homeostasis, or basically works with osmosis. So it's going to come out, and then it's going to go back in to even everything out. All right? We'll take this. To be honest with you, these trimmings, personally, if we were in a restaurant or in a hotel, we would save these and use them for a different purpose. We're making a fish stock or what have you. But the reality is this is going to go in the bin. All right? So I've trimmed as little off as possible to make it as even as possible, even though it's not perfectly even. But there we go. All right? So we'll be back after we've prepped everything, and this is gonna stay out of the refrigerator to kind of lower the temperature, because that's what we want. We don't want to put an absolutely cold piece of fish in a skillet, or even sous vide, which is how I'm going to cook this piece of fish. We'll be back. My Italian food fanatics, I am fanatical about the environment as far as our food supplies are concerned. I don't like regular beef, for example. I like grass-fed organic beef. And the same thing is true when it comes to seafood. I like wild-caught, line-caught, sustainable fish if possible, and it's always possible. Farmed salmon, in this case, we're making salmon Puttanesca, is a no-no. And the reason why is because of all of the problems that farmed salmon creates. For example, Norwegian salmon. Norwegian salmon is farmed, and what they do is they feed pellets to these fish. And these pellets are made by dredging up eels at the bottom of the Baltic Sea, and then mixing them and making them into pellets. Now that's not so bad until you find out that the Baltic Sea is polluted because of the former USSR. All of that water in there is extremely polluted, and it's inside of the eels. You don't want to eat that stuff. And because it's closed off the way that it is, the water doesn't circulate with the rest of the oceans as much as other parts of the world the water circulates. I think it takes something don't quote me, but about 3 years for that water to be totally, cleansed or replaced in the Baltic Sea. In fact, fishmongers around Denmark and in the European Union are required to tell their customers that they should not eat too much fish that comes out of the Baltic because it's bad for them. All right? So now, these pellets are made from the eels, which are high in fat and protein, and they're made into pellets, and then they're fed to the salmon. Now, that's not so bad. It is bad, but that's not so bad. These pellets have to be preserved with an antioxidant, which is a chemical, so they don't go rancid. And then these pellets are fed to the salmon. Well, these salmon, they don't move. And so within these pellets are carotenoids, which help color the flesh of the salmon because they're not eating their natural diet. And so consequently, they have to give them a coloring so that the flesh of the salmon looks like it should, like salmon, when it's not really essentially, it's not getting the diet that it normally eats. So we have to artificially color the flesh. And you'll notice the difference between wild-caught salmon and farm salmon. Farm salmon is a lighter color. There's large amounts of fat in there because these fish sit around in pens and they don't exercise. They don't run around trying to find food like they do in the wild. So it's very easy to see the difference if you really look for it. All right? Now, and I'll post a picture so you can see. The other thing is that these salmon, the farmed ones, have to be doused with chemicals because there's all kinds of microbes and disease like sea lice that infest these pens. And the people that tend to these fish have to wear hazmat suits when they spray these chemicals on the fish. So you're going to eat pellets that are made with tainted eels that have been coated in a chemical antioxidant, and then other antibiotics and other chemicals are sprayed on the fish to stop the disease, and then you're going to ingest this. I don't care what you think. If that stuff goes into the fish or on the fish, it's going to go into you, and you don't want that. Not only that, this sea lice and these other microbes infiltrate the wild stocks of fish and destroy the natural ecosystem. You don't want that either. So under no circumstances should you ever buy farmed fish from anywhere. All right? Wild caught Pacific or Alaskan fish, Alaskan salmon, Pacific salmon, as long as it's not farmed, is your best bet, and sustainable even better. I'm going to tell you one other thing. Everybody talks about we're going to go and colonize another planet and that there's sustainable life on other planets out there, and that very well may be true, but we haven't found it yet. The closest planet that we think might be able to sustain human life on it is more than 4 light years away from the planet Earth. Let me put that into perspective for you. If you're in this space shuttle traveling through space at 15,000 miles per hour, you've probably gone 100 miles an hour. I've gone 150 miles an hour on the Autobahn in Germany. Okay? 150 miles an hour is nowhere near 15,000 miles an hour. If you travel at 15,000 miles an hour, it will take you over 37,000 years. That's not a mistake. Over 37,000 years to travel just 1 light year. Okay? And the closest known planet that we think might be able to sustain human life is more than 4 light years away. That means it will take you, or take humanity, over 100,000 years traveling at 15,000 miles an hour to potentially go to the closest potential planet that can sustain human life. We don't even know that for sure. The moral of the story is very simple. We are stuck here on planet Earth, and we have to take care of our ecosystem. We have to take care of our oceans. We have to take care of the food that we eat. Otherwise, we are going to drown in our own filth. And it starts with you. It starts with your money. Okay? It starts with your money on where you spend it and what you buy. If you buy this farmed fish, that just condones the practice, and they'll get more of it. Don't do it. Tell your friends, tell your family, have them watch this part of the video if they're not into cooking, because this is for real, all right? We are going to drown in our own filth. When the skies are polluted and you cannot drink the water and the animals are wrecked, no amount of money, none, no amount of money can bring that back, all right? We have to start immediately, and it starts with you. Every person counts, all right? It's where we spend our money. You don't spend your money on it, and it just sits there. These people have to close down. They're not going to be able to survive in business. And that's what I want to happen. Not only for me, but for you and for your children and for your grandchildren and your great and great-great-great-grandchildren, because we're not going anywhere. There's a Texas-sized island of plastic from plastic bottles in the Pacific. How can we do this to ourselves? We're wrecking the planet. Do your part, all right? Recycle. Do whatever you need to do. If you don't believe me, that's fine too. That doesn't matter, but I'm here to spread the word. I'm passionate about this. It's extremely important, no matter what anybody says. This is not a governmental thing. This is not a Republican or a Democrat thing or any of that stuff. Mother Earth is a living, breathing organism, and we are a virus that is destroying that planet. Mother Earth wins in the long run. We're the ones that are going to perish unless we do something about it.
Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox. Thank you for listening to me for as long as you did. And I hope that you do your part, your little part, and I'll do my little part to ensure that we have a planet that is habitable for generations to come. Thank you.
All right, my Italian food fanatics, we're going to start with the garlic. I always get a little bit more garlic than what I need because sometimes you don't know. The cloves can be have blemishes on them. And so I'll peel one, and then I'll peel the second one. You just press down a little bit and give them a twist like this. And you open them up, and if they are clean, like these two are, then that's all we're going to use for this particular variation of Puttanesca. I cut the ends off, and then we're going to slice them. I don't think that you need me to show you how to slice garlic, but in the event that you do, that's what we'll do. I'm just going to slice like this, pretty thin. I want them to kind of melt. All right, and that one's a little bit too thick, so what we'll do is we'll cut them up just like this, and that's going to be fine. What's going to end up happening is they will melt into the sauce, and hopefully they will not be that visible. All right, and I'm going to spare you the chopping of the parsley and the chopping of the basil. But once we've done that with all of the other accoutrements that we have, and cutting the olives in half, I don't think you need to see me do that. I actually am going to cut them in quarters. We'll cut them in half this way and then in quarters that way. That way they still keep their integrity. They look like olives, but that's a very nice, manageable piece that somebody can eat, and of course with the green ones as well. And then we're going to chop the parsley. I'm not going to use the stems, even though we could, or we can. I'm going to just use the leaves as well as the basil. And then I've just taken these tomatoes. They were whole tomatoes. I removed the actual whole tomato and chopped it up. And we will use the juice or the liquid from the tomato. I will add into a tomato sauce sometime into the future. So we'll be back when all of that's taken care of. All right, my Italian food fanatics. We'll start the heat under our skillet. We're going to add a little bit of our 100% California extra virgin olive oil. And into that, when this comes to temperature a little bit, we're going to add our sliced garlic. And we're going to saute this. It's actually not saute, it's a lower heat than saute. But we are going to cook it until the garlic has browned just a little bit. All right, in fact, that one's a little bit too big. We'll chop this up a little bit. So it doesn't need to be perfect. And I'm sure if you're working at home, it's not perfect. This is not a 3 Michelin star dish, although it could be. Believe it or not, I have a variation of this particular dish that would make it to a 3-star restaurant. But it's extremely involved, and I don't think you want to go in that direction. I've shown you some other one. My tuna carpaccio video is a 3 Michelin star dish, and it's very, very easy. It's within the grasp of literally anybody. If you have an interest in that, I would check that video out if I were you. So we're going to give this a little bit of a saute, a little bit of a cook here, a little bit of a fry, until the garlic is golden brown. All right. Now we can add our basil, our parsley, and our anchovies. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a fork and basically mash these anchovies. To get them to a paste or to dissolve and disintegrate. Before we add the wine. So now that the anchovies have basically dissolved into our herbs, oil, and garlic, we'll add the white wine. And we're going to let that reduce down until it's almost dry. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we are back, and you can see that the wine has reduced and is literally completely gone. That's exactly what we want. The alcohol is going to burn off. It's going to concentrate its flavors. Now you can see right here that, and you can hear, more importantly, that we're sizzling. So that means what? That means that the water has evaporated, and now we're back to our oil. And you can see that as I'm pressing down some of the little larger pieces of garlic, as I'm sure you will also have, I'm just cutting in half. I want them to kind of melt and be smaller than they were. All right, so they're manageable for somebody eating this. We are now going to add in the rest of our ingredients. We'll add in our tomatoes. By the way, these are 100% organic California tomatoes. The best tomatoes in the United States, in my opinion. Although I got to hand it to New Jersey. They have excellent tomatoes as well. You do not need to buy imported San Marzano tomatoes, although the DOP ones, the real ones, are extremely good most of the time. You have to actually taste, because tomatoes are a crop and they change with time as well. We're also going to add in our clam juice, our olives and our capers, and our red pepper. Okay, I'm going to just give it a little bit of a pinch there, just a tiny bit more. I don't want too much, because I know who I'm serving this to, and I know they do not like spicy food. So just a tiny, tiny bit is apropos. Now we're going to bring this back to the boil, and we are going to let it simmer and reduce slightly for about 5 minutes. And then we're going to set it aside so that the flavors can meld. If you see any larger tomato chunks like that, you can break them up with your spoon or whatever implement you're using to cook. So we'll come back when this is at a simmer, and we'll see it as it reduces. All right, my Italian food fanatics, you can see that we're coming up to temperature and that the sauce is slowly starting to come to a boil. We're going to bring it still with high heat. It's been on high heat the whole time. We're going to bring it back to a boil. In fact, this is just starting. When it really comes up to temperature, we will turn it down and let it simmer for about 5 to 7 minutes until it reduces slightly, and then set it aside, and then we'll get to cooking the salmon. Be back in a moment. All right, my Italian food fanatics, you can see that the sauce is at a full boil. We're now going to turn the heat down a little bit, and we're going to let it simmer for 5 to 7 minutes until it slightly thickens, okay? It's still a little bit too thick. We don't want soup, but we don't want something so viscous and thick either. We want a nice medium consistency sauce. We'll be back. All right, my Italian food fanatics, while we're waiting for the sauce to reduce down, I thought I would show you this. This is a 12-quart container, or a 12-liter container as well. 12 quarts on this side, 12 liters on this side, and this is made for sous vide. You can see the top here with the little hole that's made specifically for my immersion circulator, or the heat source for the sous vide. We're going to go ahead and fill this thing up with hot water, and then we'll put the immersion circulator, the circulator, inside of here and plug it in and bring it to temperature. Today we're going to cook the salmon to about 119 degrees. I say about because it's probably going to be off by 1 degree or so, but in that zone from 115 to 119 is where salmon is pretty much perfect. A lot of people may not like that particular type of texture, and if you don't, then cooking to 124 degrees is going to give you the consistency that you're probably used to without overcooking the salmon. So we'll be back. All right, my Italian food fanatics, I don't know if you can tell, but this sauce has slightly thickened. All right, and we're going to thicken it just a little bit more, and as I see larger pieces of tomato in there, I'm pushing them down and cutting them in half or in quarters with the wooden spoon, or the wooden stirrer as it were. But you can see that it is slightly thicker. It just needs to be a tiny bit thicker than that. All right, now make sure to get this stuff in here as well, because that's all flavor that we don't want lost. And it also makes cleaning the pan, the skillet, a lot easier when it's all said and done. All right, so we'll let that reduce just a little bit more, and we'll get started with the salmon. All right, my Italian food fanatics, here we are. This sauce is now approaching where we want it as far as thickness is concerned, and I don't like tomato skins inside. So if I do see a tomato skin like I did there, I kind of want to remove it. You don't have to. That's just a personal preference with me. When you buy tomatoes that are peeled, it's not always going to be the case where all the skins are gone. So you can see, as I use the fork in there, I should be using this implement here. You can see that it is slightly thickened and that it is reduced down a little bit. Now we're going to put this off to the side, so you see the consistency that you're looking for. We're going to put this off the side and let the flavors kind of meld and blend. You notice how it's just a little bit thicker here. It's a tiny bit thicker, and you can almost run the wooden spoon through there and leave a trail. It's still a little bit wet, but don't worry. That will evaporate a little bit in time as well. So let's put this aside and concentrate on the salmon. All right, my Italian food fanatics, I have filled up our container to about the 10-quart or 10-liter mark. A little bit shy of 10 liters, but 10 quarts. And it's with hot water, and this water is at 120 degrees. I don't know if you can see in here. It's 120 degrees, which is the perfect temperature of where we want to cook the salmon. We want to cook it at 119. There it goes to 119. It will begin to lose heat as it sits out like this. So I'm going to cover it going to put our cover on. And I'm going to plug in the immersion circulator. And we'll let it keep this water at 119 degrees. All right, I'll be back. All right, my Italian food fanatics, for those of you who don't know what a sous vide machine is, this is one version of many different ones that are out there. It's a machine that has a heating element on the inside as well as a pump. And what it does is it circulates the water within this container and keeps it at a constant temperature. We're going to place the salmon in a plastic bag in a Ziploc, and we're going to submerge it within this water. Because water is such a good conductor of heat, it will, in about 20 minutes, cook the salmon to the exact temperature that you want. It won't go, you actually, if you want it at 119, you set the temperature for 120, 1 degree above what you want the final product to be. All right, so this goes in the water, just like into the water. The water should come up to about right here. Obviously, it can't go above here because of the electric portion. But we'll submerge this, and I will put it at 119 degrees and show you how to prepare the salmon. I'll be back. All right, my Italian food fanatics. I don't know if you can see. Let me just bring this a little bit closer. But you see the green light there on the machine? That means that the machine has brought the water to temperature. Of course, it just took a very little while by virtue of the fact that I started already with hot water. Now let's go and see how to prepare the salmon for the sous vide. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we are back, and we are going to place this salmon inside of the sous vide machine. Now, how do you prepare this to go into the water? It can't go directly in the water. So what we do is we encase it in plastic. Now, you probably have guessed, but I have a machine that does this. It sucks all of the air out and thereby essentially sealing it. So there's no air within the bag, all right? And but there's a problem with that. Sometimes if it sucks out too much of the air, it will damage the fillet. And these machines are somewhat expensive. So there is another way to do it. It's with a regular Ziploc bag. You don't need any special equipment at all. And though this is a nice immersion circulator, you can purchase one for very little money, a little bit under $100. And if you go into gsargenti.com or chefgsa.com into my store, you can see where there's a link to Amazon to buy one of these machines for under $100, and they're very, very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some 100% California olive oil, and we are going to put it inside of the bag just like that, put it on both sides, and then we're going to gently put this fillet in there just like this. Okay? You want to have a copious amount of oil inside of the bag so that when this is done, the fish does not stick inside of the bag and get damaged. All right? And so now we're not even going to close the bag. In a moment, when I come back, I'm going to show you how to lower it into the water so that the water pushes all of the air out. And then we'll seal the bag, and we'll wait about 20 minutes for this to get to the temperature that we want. All right? I'll be back. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we are back. You can see that the water is circulating in there, and I'm going to take the salmon and I'm going to put it inside of the water. I've opened it up like this, and that is going to help. If you notice how the water is pushing the air out of the bag. You want to lower it all the way in just until it reaches the top portion so that all of the air is out of there, but not submerged so that water gets in the bag. And then we are going to seal it with the Ziploc feature in the bag. And I'm going to leave the Ziploc feature didn't necessarily work there. Actually, in this case, it doesn't really matter too much because we're just going to put this over the lip, press this down this way, and you can see, if I push this further back, that the fillet of salmon is submerged and floating in that water. We'll now wait and come back in 20 minutes, and that salmon should be perfectly done. See you in a bit. All right, my Italian food fanatics, our salmon is ready. I just turned off the sous vide machine, and you can see how in the bag the salmon is ready. Well, we can't see just yet, but you'll know. You can tell. See how the proteins have coagulated a little bit here? I'm going to debag it in another place. I just wanted you to see me pull it out of the water, and it is slightly warm. It's going to be perfect. So let's go and plate this up over on the other counter. All right, my Italian food fanatics, I had to get away from that area because there wasn't enough room to do what I want to do here. I'm going to take a paper towel, and we are going to gently, you must be extremely careful with the fish when it is done this way. It's going to fall apart if you don't, if you're not very careful. I'm going to drain it on some paper towels, just like this, and we'll blot it. Now, at this point, we can turn it over, and you're able to remove the skin if you are extremely careful. All right, the skin will just easily, well, somewhat easily, peel off. Let me get a boning knife. You can peel the skin back this way. It just takes a little bit of effort, and you have to be very, very gentle because sous vide skin is not crispy. Some people may like it, but I'm not a fan. I like crispy skin, but I don't like skin done this way. It's not cooked enough for me. And there we go. All right? So now, let me just clean that up a little bit. We can, again, you have to be, now even more so, you have to be very, very gentle because there is no skin and nothing keeping it together. All right? So now, let's get our pan in here, and we will plate this up with our sauce. There's our Puttanesca sauce. How sweet it is. On top, just like that. How sweet it is. That's a beautiful picture. And I'm going to show you now on the inside the perfect temperature of sous vide. See that? It's cooked perfectly throughout. I don't know if you can notice that. But anyway, there you go. There's your sous vide salmon Puttanesca. Let's go taste it. Hello, my Italian food fanatics. Well, we've come to that point. It's time to taste this salmon Puttanesca. I don't know if you can see, I showed you a little bit, but this is literally perfectly done. I mean, it just doesn't get better than this as far as texture is concerned. It might be a little bit underdone for some of you, but for me, I believe it to be the perfect texture.
My goodness. That is fabulous. It's wild caught, so it tastes like fish. It tastes like salmon. A lot of people like the farm salmon, which we talked about, because it doesn't taste fishy. Well, if it doesn't taste fishy, it can't be fish. And we know that that's certainly the case these days. But wow. The sauce is perfectly balanced. The fish is sublime. It has a texture that is just absolutely soft and beautiful. It's not too cooked. It's not too undercooked. 119 degrees is perfect for salmon. If you like it a little more done, take it up to 124 and you'll be perfect. You don't want it any higher than 124, 125. The way we did the salt and the way we washed off the capers and the olives. I mean, it's not salty, but it has flavor. Those olives, the tomatoes, oh God, the garlic, it is so good. The more I eat, the more I want. And just a perfect piece of fish, too. So good. The nice thing about sous vide is it doesn't dry out the fish. The fish retains its moisture, and you can control the temperature to which it's cooked precisely. All right? So again, if you try this and don't like it at 119, the next time, well, you can just put it back in the bag and bump it up to 120, 124, 125 until you get the texture that you like, and then you'll know for a fact. There's some people that eat it lower at 115. I don't like it so low. I think that's a little bit too raw for me, even though I'm not against eating raw salmon. I like sushi. But there's something in the middle there that I don't particularly care for. So I like it at about 119. And boy, is it good. Wow. There's a little bit of garlic in there. The parsley and the basil do their part. The tomatoes, the California organic tomatoes. Oh, they are so good. That's, I think, that and the fish really make this. And you wouldn't think that tomatoes go well with salmon, but they do. And then, of course, there's the flavor of the white wine in there, a little bit of clam juice, the olive oil. The sauce is not too thick. It's not too thin either, as you saw in the video. It's just really fabulous. So, I'm going to finish this plate. Do yourself a favor. Please, go out and buy everything that you need to make this. And make it. Thumbs up, please. Subscribe. Ring the bell. Leave me a comment below what you think about this. I know that it may not be for everybody. Sous vide is not for everybody. But it is something that makes cooking to a perfect temperature, like they would do in a 3 Michelin star restaurant, within the grasp of everyone. And that's one of my goals, is to make sure that you can cook something absolutely perfectly. So thanks for your time. Thanks for your attention. I hope you make this, because you'll be really happy you did. Your friends and loved ones and family are going to just enjoy this. Oh, it's so good. Thanks for your time. Don't buy farm fish. I'll see you soon.